make sure we're doing our part in reaching these people.
At the beginning of the year, we were just really rolling out what we were trying to do.
Before COVID, we were just doing our normal church thing, if I could put it like that. We were just doing we were just functioning, doing our normal church thing. I'm pretty sure, we had a series that was taking place. Knowing Pastor Tahirah, there was a series that was taking place.
I remember that God had spoken to me about not continuing certain things and that certain things had to end.
Impact class and also morning worship. You still had your the women's circle of Ruth and the men's at that time the gathering was taking place. Everything was just functioning normally, if I could use that term.
We didn't know what was coming up, and so we hadn't really, at the beginning of the year, we really hadn't started running, with the vision, and we were really just trying to echo, things are going to change. Some things are going to end. It won't be like it was. And of course, that's in January, and we're declaring, some things are shifting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Everything was functioning normally. And then it happened with the virus showing up. And we had to adjust. Everybody had to go through some type of adjustment. Right. And we went through an adjustment here.
We were told that there was a pandemic officially, and at the time we didn't know what that meant for us, but I remember being in the office and kind of checking my news feed, and I knew what was being played nationally, but I hadn't heard anything about Western New York, and so I'm checking our news. I'm checking to see what we would be required to do, if anything. I knew that it would be, unless the federal government hammered down something across the board, it would be a state by state, what we would be allowed to do. And I remember getting, I think it was an email or seeing something on Facebook saying that, you can only have so many, or for the next 10 days or something like that, you won't be allowed to do blah, blah, blah.
Before we received that great announcement, COVID was already here. And I remember being over at the school and I got sick. I got so sick. I already have a weakened immune system because of the steroids that I'm on for my condition. And told me I have, the flu or whatever. They gave me antibiotics and all that. It took like 3 to 4 weeks for me to get over that. And on the flip side of that, we walked into COVID. We found out about this virus.
When I heard, I was scared. I didn't know what that meant, I was scared more so for our church because I just didn't know, how do you pastor in a pandemic? How do you gather? How do you minister? How do you make sure that everybody's okay? So that was my fear. I didn't really have any issues initially, personally. My concern was, okay, what about the members? How do we make sure that they're good? How do we check on them?
And we found out that we had to start wearing masks, and the whole routine of going to the grocery stores and lining up. Do you remember how you had to go to Wegmans and you had to line up around the store and they had to wipe down the conveyor belt before you put your food up there? But it was serious. It was really a serious thing. And we're on the phone with our family members, just just checking in, and yeah, it was a serious thing. And then you saw on the news, especially, I got my oldest brother is in Queens, and we saw what was taking place there. The death toll there was huge. And yeah, you just went into this scope of things like, wow, this is something serious that's going on here.
Initially, I didn't really feel anything. I was kind of numb because my focus was, on the church. My immediate family, of course, my wife, our 2 daughters, we're all together, so I can see, what's going on with us. Most of my other family lived, of course, in Arizona, Indiana at the time. So I was good. I believed our girls were good. I believed my wife was good. My concern really was, okay, what about the church? What does it mean for the church?
At the church here, the whole routine had to change. The whole routine here had to change, and it did get to the point where we couldn't assemble no longer. And that was different. Think about that. We could no longer gather and worship God in his house because of a virus.
One of the major things for me was trying to make sure that people I wouldn't normally see online watching Bible study had access. My fear was some of our older members would not be able to have the technology to watch. So it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to move our services here and come here, but I didn't know how many of our members had Facebook. I didn't know if our senior members had Zoom capabilities. I didn't know if I didn't know what their engagement was from a social network platform context. So the reason why we did the phone conference was because I believe that, okay, if they don't have, that our senior members, if they didn't have Facebook, Instagram, if they're not on YouTube, they can at least get on the phone. So that was the first spot. And then I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to cost an arm and a leg? I found a free way to do it. And then there's some things I did out of pocket just to kind of keep us connected.
The people of God got to be fed. And he was very innovative in a lot of the things that he was doing here. He really was. I salute him on that because a lot of churches didn't make it through. Think about that. A lot of churches didn't make it through. You hear him joke about his iPhone. Well, the iPhone was the camera for the longest, and people didn't even realize that.
The further we got into 2020, past March, past April, that's when I start getting some of the text messages like, do you know when we're going to come back together? What if we had prayer meetings, And what I discovered was more people needed FaceTime, not with me, but with each other. And so they were seeing me all the time. They were seeing me on Wednesdays. They were still seeing me on Sundays. But it was trying to get around their brothers and sisters. And how do we do that? I did not know how much some people needed connection.
There was a lot of work that man did. He really he pushed the envelope, if I can say that. I believe that's the term. He really did it.
I was grateful as a church that we were as small as we were. When they gave us the edict, you can only have so many people, we were small enough that if we split our services at 9 and 12, we can get the bulk of us in. We were small enough that could work for us. And we could be distant, enough that could work. Larger ministries couldn't do it because it was just too many of them. They'd have to have services starting on Wednesday and flow through. So we were small enough to pivot. And with that, we had a core group just for services that would come in and sanitize.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. I remember even other churches would come here and they would compliment us on what we were accomplishing here because we really had it down pat. Sister Farah, really, when it came to sanitizing and disinfecting in this house and the procedures that she had set up, we were getting compliments on that. It was really working, and everybody worked together as one. That's the beautiful thing. We all work together as one.
And our media team worked, our musicians, our praise team. When you're used to only doing one service and giving your all in that one service, and then you stop, you sanitize, you try to get a bite to eat, and you do it all over again. As the athlete said years ago, those individuals were the real MVPs.
I remember one time he was saying in so many words, membership, have prayer with your family. We had prayer with our family. I mean, the St. Louis, Harlem, Queens, Washington, D.C., we all got on the phone together and we talked and we reminisced. But the most important thing was I had prayer with our family. And this lasted for like almost 3 years during that COVID, where we were online talking and we were having prayer. Yeah.
It was the first time I had seen them in a month, sometimes 2 months. And we took a risk and we went to hugging people. We again, a whole lot of stuff we didn't know, but the need for community and connection was greater than what I thought. And for me, if I were to be honest, the word community means a whole lot more to me now than it did prior to the pandemic.
COVID made you stretch. COVID made you within yourself say, but I know we can do this. That's what COVID did. I know that we can reach our people and other people, because if everybody's at home, somebody's going to want to hear a good word.
We went through a lot, I think, as a nation in particular. But I'm hoping that we've learned not to take each other for granted. Not just church, but just not taking each other humanly for granted.
During COVID, it was called the COVID Initiative Project by Pastor Pointer. And a lot of the clergy within the city got together and they formulated this call center, and we utilized these rooms here. This is like a temporary boardroom now, but we utilized these rooms. We had 3 employees, and we took calls from all over Erie County, dealing with the COVID-19 virus.
40 plus years ago, in the ultimate wisdom of God, we ended up in this place and had enough space that the community could come here and get supplies, masks. Initially, we were doing the mask, and then we did the vaccines when the vaccines became available.
Telling people where they can go to get food, where testing centers was, what the effects of COVID-19, what the signs were, in case they wanted to know. And we found out that a large part of that during COVID-19 was that people were in desperate need of food.
We got contacted by another group that was set up to give groceries for free fresh fruits and vegetables. The program was set up that we could hire someone, and they paid them to take phone calls and call individuals and say, hey, we've got this program. How many people are in your home? We're going to send you food. And if you had, other things that were going on, the director told me one time someone said, hey, how can we help you? Well, my refrigerator just went out. They got the person a new refrigerator. And so we were able to work for the community.
So we had a co-op. The African co-op worked with this program, and it was a wonderful thing.
News 4's Marley Tuskus is live outside the Greater Faith Bible Tabernacle Church. This is on Edison Avenue in Buffalo. She has the latest for us tonight. Marley?
Jackie, this comes just one day after Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz announced that the general public, symptomatic or not, could get tested at specific sites for COVID-19. Now, we're starting to see testing sites continue to pop up across the region, the most recent being here on the east side of Buffalo and the 14215 zip code, where we have seen a majority of the county's COVID cases.
We had the Life Center. We had the large parking lot. So I'll never forget when we were doing the mask and the vaccines when they became available. Cars were literally blocking the street, trying to get in. We had it set up. We had a tent outside of this building and had a kind of a U shape. People were coming in. It was jam-packed. It was a traffic jam with people just kind of coming in. And even beyond just the mask and the vaccine, when other programs started just to give out food, they needed a place to stage it. And they would always call us, and the answer was always yes.
I think that was a beautiful thing. I was proud that this assembly here could be a part of something that was just wonderful. Providing the answers to mankind problems that lead to abundant living, and we did it here. And we were very successful in doing that.
There were some good spots in trying to help our community. And, not only, our church, but of course there were other pastors who were doing all that we could. Collaboration became a huge thing. We learned how to work, and work with others. And members who would normally do one thing weren't doing that anymore. So announcing that we have an opportunity to serve and do something in the community, they would show up, and they would be there. And for me as a pastor, it blessed me because if we couldn't see each other in here, we could see each other still in the community, still serving, still doing what a church should do. So that was always a blessing to me. But that's how I watched our members work together.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
It was because of COVID and because people were working from home. We in the Black community have been saying for years that stuff was happening to us, and the reply was, oh, probably you must have did this and you did that. No, stuff was happening. And what COVID did, not only for Black America, but for white, Asia, Hispanic, or whoever, you couldn't deny what you were seeing on your phones and on your computers and on your iPads. You could not deny what you were seeing. And we already knew about this. It's been happening. So the eyes were open.
You're dealing with a pandemic, but then as a Black man, you're dealing with this heightened sense of rage against us for absolutely, in my mind, no reason at all. We just want to live. That's all. And so scrambling to stay safe and then scrambling to stay alive became a part of the dichotomy of the pandemic for Black people.
Black Lives Matter movement, you know, it really came to the forefront then, because this has been going on for years. And no one really believed us when we had said that. Yeah, I remember I reached out to the young lady on Facebook who was filming when George Floyd, when they had him down on the ground, and it took courage for that young lady to do what she did. Because if she would have just turned her back and just left, we would have never known of this. And according to the police reports, they had a whole different narrative that took place. It's always a different narrative at times, but the camera don't lie. The camera don't lie.
I remember with all of the racial tension in America during that time, I remember seeing a young boy, I think he's like a teenager now, but it was a young boy singing on Instagram. And he was singing some song about, I just want to live. I remember watching it, and back then we weren't gathering together. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to play this for our service.
My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just want to live. God protect me. I just want to live. I just want to live.
And you could feel in the comment section, you know, how it touched, you know, the members of our church. We've made it by the grace of God, but to have a pandemic and then on top of that, the floodgates of everything else happening, I don't think we knew what we were coming into. And I don't think, I think we all had a little undoing, you know, from 2020 to 2022 in particular.
Well, leaders from predominantly Black churches in Erie and Niagara counties, they joined together with that statement of solidarity, and they hope that the current crisis of race in America leads to real change. Now, those pastors stood on the steps of Calvary Baptist Church on Buffalo's east side, and as church leaders, they are looking to God and to their faith to try to overcome.
What you see behind me today is just a small group of Buffalo, Western New York, Niagara County pastors who are working to do what we can. Each and every one of us are doing something to help to better the situation that we're in.
Looking at Pastor Farah, I saw him go through a change also. I saw him go through more of a, if I could use that word, a commitment, where he realized, you know, we got to keep church going.
When I knew we were given the green light to come back and gather, I said, for those that are coming back, I didn't want those who chose to stay in to demonize those who were coming. And I didn't want those who were coming to demonize those who stayed. You know, you guys don't have any faith. I didn't want that to be the case. And so we tried to set that as the foundation for us coming together, that whether you stayed at home or whether you came out, I just wanted you to stay connected.
So there was a lot of work that man did. He really, he pushed the envelope, if I can say that. I believe that's the term. He really did it. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of this assembly and all that we have accomplished, and that we are still marching forward. That was a huge thing.
We had to space out the chairs. We had to put signs up in the foyer. We had to change how many people could be in the restroom. We put in sanitary stations where as soon as you came in, you could, get your hands sanitized. We set up the temperature thing so that we could monitor the temperature of people that were coming. Even the registration was a safety thing because should something happen, we had a record of who was in which service, and we could contact them and say, hey, brother so-and-so, so-and-so just said that they had COVID. Even now, you can probably still see from time to time people with masks on here, because it's just, I think we're at a place now where it's not going anywhere. It's like the normal flu, which is what I thought at the very beginning. This is going to be something we're just going to get used to. Every variant that comes out, we're just going to have to get used to it. But yeah, beyond that, we even set up counseling pieces. We had a stint for several months where we offered counseling via Zoom. Again, as a health check, make sure that you're okay. If you're feeling a certain kind of way, come to this group where you can get some help in that regard. And some of those things are things that we should continue to do, because mental health, it's still prevalent. It's something that we still got to be able to address. And it can't all just be from that pulpit.
That was a huge thing, just to make it through COVID-19.
First service coming back together was outside. And so we asked others to be a part of hospitality. We asked people that wouldn't normally do things to do things. We had the brothers to set up the chairs outside. And we knew if we could do that and see everybody and then announce, okay, the next week we're going to do 2 services. We worked together in that group. There are certain things that we do now still that started in the pandemic.
God has been so great, and God has been good with this assembly. And this is something that He has ordained, because we're present and we're here and we're functioning. And I think that's just, that's a great thing.
One of the things that the pandemic did was it set in place a rhythm within our church where people had grown accustomed to going to a certain place to get ministry. And now, even though we're back, people know that on Sunday mornings, you don't have to go without, because you can still go to that same place and receive ministry there. But it pushed us. We didn't have the cameras that we have now prior to the pandemic. We didn't have the lighting that we have now prior to the pandemic. We didn't have virtual members prior to the pandemic. We have legitimate members in Illinois, Indiana, South Carolina, Ohio. And these are people who connected during the pandemic.
As a church, I am as your pastor. I've never pastored in a pandemic. But if you would have told me at the beginning of March that we would go into a pandemic where we wouldn't be able to come to church physically like this, we had to live in this building to have church since the middle of March. It is almost the middle of July. What a mighty God we serve.
We made it through the pandemic. We made it. That was a tragic thing that happened. We lost a lot of loved ones. And not only did we lose a lot of loved ones, but we saw the faith community come forward and really, that they really stretched their arm out there, giving support. Not just to the body of Christ, but to the community as a whole.
It forced us to utilize technology a whole lot better. We were behind the curve on that. But now, thanks be to God, we're not where we used to be. We're a little bit better with the use of technology. We got a QR code for just about everything now. From prayer to new members to baptism, we got QR codes for everything. But that pandemic pushed us to do ministry in this century.
I'm looking forward to the outreach that we're going to be doing. I really am looking forward to it. It's a great It's always a great opportunity when you can go and introduce yourself to the community so they know who you are and what you have here in this house that they can benefit from. And one thing's for sure, everybody can benefit from Jesus, okay?
But there is a tethering to the foundation of our church and the things of God that I don't want to lose, even though technology is in use.
You have to know your history in order for you to go forward. You have to know where you have came from and what you have accomplished. We have always been a word church. Since that guy right there who started it, we have always been a word church. So COVID made it possible for us to reach households that we never would have reached in the beginning.
So I think she made a significant change, and I'm extremely proud of her for that, because through everything that we went through, she put us first. And once she got saved, that's when she started putting God first. I want to see our church grow in love and unity. I want each and every person that's there to love God first, be concerned behind the vision and the person in the church that God has put as the head of that church to be the visionary for that church, and for everybody, not one person skip a beat, and we all get behind him to make sure that vision comes to pass.
And ever keep that in the forefront of their mind, that faith is the victory, and we can overcome anything if we exercise faith in God. That's why it's called great faith.
All that anointing comes from all of that weight of letting God work things out and show you. And you'll get a chance to release that weight to someone else.
And God has designed, from the foundation of the world, that he had a lamb slain that we would have victory. So faith is the victory. I believe God, I believe his word. I will have victory. At some point, I will have victory and I will have success.
We would like to see the church grow so that there's no more room in that building for us, and we got to do something else. I'd like to see sister churches come out of the mother church, Faith Bible Tabernacle. I'd like to see that.
It's a victory that no matter what life tosses my way, if I can just hold on to that grain of mustard seed faith, there's no mountain too high, no valley too low, that God won't grant us the victory.
It's knowing without question, beyond today, after life, you may not be here to see it, but whatever promises were made to you regarding yourself, your family, your children's children, generally, it will happen. There's no question about that. And I believe I live it every day.
God has challenged us to stretch. He's challenged me to stretch. Since my husband has been gone, I've had to learn the voice of God for myself. He says, it's going to be all right. The saints of God here, had to learn, and you're still learning, the voice of God for yourself. And it's going to be all right.
There is love for the lonely. There is joy for your heart.
There's always a flip side. You plan your life, but when you flip it over, God has a totally different plan. And on God's side, everything will and can happen. But because faith is the victory, you will overcome every obstacle that comes your way. You will walk tall. Believe me, you will walk tall.
people of God who have labored to get where they are, sown to get where they are, not just money, time, talent, treasure, given for the work of the kingdom, and lives have been changed because all the victories that individuals have all come because they held on to their faith. No matter what it looks like, hold fast to the confession of your faith. And where we are today is because somebody kept saying and kept saying and kept saying and kept saying and kept believing and kept planning for what they believed God was going to do.
He'll take away all of your sins, and you will never thirst again. Receive that living, living, living water.
I would hope and pray that us as a congregation, we are here. Well done.
And continue to work in a servant, capacity to be everything that this community needs us to be.
So I see our church as a large center to be teaching other churches.
Because we know that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So we have to really claim it, whatever you want to, and just have faith enough to believe that if it didn't happen already, it will happen.
More things for the children, you know what I mean? Because they're our future. They are our future. Amen.
Oh, I want us to grow. I want us to grow with more men, more children, because the children are our tomorrow. So we need more parents with children, and children coming every day, and the parents learning the word and teaching our children the word, not only here at church, but out in the community. Because if you got people in the community that know God, they can spread the word, and then that's going to make everything much better. Now, the only thing you didn't ask me, and I'm going to throw that in, I've been at this church since 1986. And look, I plan on being here much, much longer. Okay?
Amen.
All in Jesus' name. The blood! Ah! Cut me off.